Hi there, and welcome to what has to be one of the most beautiful features ever found in or around an airport, the Jewel. Home to the world's tallest indoor waterfall, the interior is a literal rainforest, tiered up towards the glass roof, while the outer part of the ring spans 10 stories, above and below ground, with a selection of shopping, entertainment, airport facilities, and even the hotel where I stayed last night, the Hotel Air. It's not often that I start trip reports in shopping malls or in rainforests, but in a weird way, the Jewel is emblematic of this airport and the city-state itself, where optics and aesthetics matter. And its 300,000 daily visitors seem to agree. The Jewel is connected directly to Terminals 1, 2, and 3 landside. Terminal 1 literally just sort of becomes the Jewel. You'll be taken aback when arriving into Terminal 1 for the first time. But for those departing, there are many thoughtful facilities throughout the Jewel, including things like early check-in desks, baggage storage, and the like. Today, I'm taking a short flight. In fact, this is the shortest flight of my entire Routes and Hub series, following the original Kangaroo Route and all of its stops. But today's video is about so much more than just these 184 miles in the air. If you want to learn about or catch up with the series, the link can always be found in the description. So today, we have a full trip report, some history about Singapore Airlines' place in the aviation world, and some context about why Singapore has withstood the test of time as a major transit hub. As we head over to the fairly newly reopened Terminal 2, let me introduce myself to any of you that may be new here. I'm Kevin, the Flip-Flop Traveler. If there's one thing that I want you to know about my videos, it's that my opinions are honest and my own. If you'd like to know more about the what, how, and why I do what I do, scan the QR code or go to the link below. Have a look around the channel. There are hundreds of flight and resort reviews to explore. This journey through and from Changi starts now. What makes Singapore so unique in the context of my Routes and Hub series is that it really is the only major transit point from the original Kangaroo Route, which is still a major transit point today. Do Dubai and Hong Kong transport millions of passengers from Europe to Australia each year? Sure, but they weren't in the game, so to speak, all the way back in 1935. So early, in fact, that it was kinda before Singapore even had its own airport. Right now, we're in the check-in hall of Terminal 2, which was overhauled during COVID and reopened in November 2023. I mean, for an airport, it's kinda stunning. Except for the carpets, more on that later, but is certainly gorgeous otherwise. It even has its own waterfall of sorts inside. Check-in facilities here are largely automated now. For Singapore Airlines, or SQ, Terminal 2 is where their flights to Southeast Asia, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, the Maldives, Nepal, South Korea, and Japan, except SQ12, leave from. The rest all leave from Terminal 3. But don't worry, you can actually check in at the wrong one, if necessary, as long as you're early enough. Aesthetics have always played a huge role here at Changi, and it all began with its original design, and perhaps the lack of aesthetics. Site preparations and land reclamation began for Changi in 1975, and at the time, the design for the terminal was pragmatic with, quote, very little consideration for aesthetics, unquote. In the years to follow, this changed drastically. The designers and Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew decided, quote, that the airport should be an extension of their garden city. This is because the first point of contact for the tourist visiting Singapore, apart from your Singapore Airlines girl in the plane, is the airport. So they took great care to combine the aesthetics with the functional aspects, unquote. All of this said, Singapore's aviation history certainly predates 1981 when Changi was opened. Their first commercial airport was Kallang, which was opened in 1937 and saw the Imperial Airways, BOAC, and QEA aircraft, which would help elevate this city-state to the destination and hub that it is today. In 1955, Paya Lebar Airport was opened to meet the growing demand for transit routes, along with their own hometown services. Singapore Airlines is the product of an airline heritage which Malaysia and Singapore helped grow together, until 1972 when the carriers split for good. In my next trip report on Malaysia Airlines, I'll talk a bit about Malayan Airways and Malaysia Singapore Airlines. For today's story, the most important part of that heritage is the rapid expansion that began under Malaysia Singapore Airways, or MSA, and then nearly exploded as Singapore Airlines operated as their own entity. Under MSA, they began services to Australia and later New Zealand in 1967, and then on to London in 1971, and that's the moment when they joined the Europe to Australia service. As SQ spread their wings, so to speak, they sought to make Singapore the world's first truly global hub, with a plan to reach California. Negotiations with the US began under MSA and took 9 years to finally come to fruition. The US accused of stonewalling the entire process in a protectionist effort to preserve Pan Am's dominance in the market. Sounds familiar, right, Australia? Soon enough, they launched their service with their new fleet of 747s. Throughout the 1970s, a true icon of the aviation world was created and refined. The focus on the Singapore girl, what they referred to their cabin crew as at the time. Clad in custom Balmain sarong kabayas, the care, allure, and attention to detail is in part what put SQ on the map, and even more so, what kept them there. And that brings us closer to the modern day, here at Changi. On the 1st of July 1981 at 7:10 a.m., SQ-101 made history when it became the first commercial flight to land at the newly opened Changi Airport from Kuala Lumpur. Quite a few Singaporeans traveled to Kuala Lumpur just to be one of the first 140 to land here at Changi. As I put up the expanded airport stats, we can certainly see that Kuala Lumpur is still the most important regional market for the city-state, with up to 40 flights per day in each direction. By 1985, the airport was hosting nearly 10 million passengers annually, and from then all the way until 2019, recorded an average yearly passenger growth of over 8%. Terminal 2 opened in 1990 and Terminal 3 in 2007. While there is also a Terminal 4, the original 3 are the true hub of the airport, which has the terminals arranged in one big U-shape, all connected airside. There are also trains that run between the terminals if you don't want to walk, and when you take the train from Terminal 3 to 2, or in reverse, that's when you'll pass through the middle of the jewel. To me, there are a few things in particular that make Singapore's Changi so great for passengers. First up, it's clean, it's spotless. Even the bathrooms are places where you just want to be. Beyond that though, there are many spaces sprinkled throughout the airport that might make you do a double take to ensure that you didn't accidentally wander into a business class lounge. Seating areas are spread out in endless nooks and feature a wide selection of comfortable seating options for those having long layovers. There's also an airside air hotel and the 2 landside choices, the Crown Plaza after every AvGeek's heart, and the Yotel Air after every claustrophobic's worst nightmares. One huge part of the airport's living and breathing culture is the food. There's an enormously wide variety of food on offer, but it's more about just the quick eateries or the sit-down restaurants. It's also about the pineapple tarts and the bakwa. I kid you not, in the past, I've drawn diagrams, detailed diagrams, for friends and family who pass through Changi on the way to visit me to ask, nay beg, them to bring me back some of my favorite treats on Earth. Beach and hang is good, but fragrance is where it's at. We all know about the shopping already. I mean, it would seem like LVMH owned part of Singapore walking around this place. You'll find just about every store you'd imagine duty-free could possibly have. Don't need to do many details on this one. Possibly one of the most unique things about Changi, though, are the number of gardens, both inside and out. I mean, beautiful gardens inside with water features galore. Okay, I guess a lot of airports have versions of them. But a butterfly garden? Yeah, I don't know many that have that. Or how about a sunflower garden? Did I mention the rooftop pool or the cinema yet? Then there are the lounges. Many, many lounges. I think I've shown you 6 or 7 previously, and I honestly don't remember if I ever brought you along to the KrisFlyer Gold Lounge yet. But this is actually one of my favorite ones. Though I'm flying economy today, I access with my Starline's Gold status. Singapore, like Lufthansa and Swiss, separate their elite flyers from their business class flyers. But while Lufthansa Group gives the elites the nicer lounge, Singapore gives that to business class guests. But sometimes, when the business class lounge in Singapore here is crowded, I'll actually come here. It's smaller than the business class lounge, but just as comfortable with plenty of food and drink options. And so that brings us to the Singapore Airlines of today. They currently have 143 passenger aircraft in their fleet, with a further 65 on order, flying to a total of 76 international destinations. And I'd be remiss not to mention, a huge part of Singapore's fleet is actually not in Singapore, as they are a 25% owner of the now combined Tata airline extravaganza in India, including Air India Express, and Vistara. So about these carpets. These carpets make me want to fight someone. For an airport, to have a thick piling in a carpet is the most absurd thing that I've ever heard of. But besides that, the amount of grime and stain that are on these carpets already, and the number of staff that are deployed throughout the entire terminal, spot scrubbing at all times, is insane. Beyond the constant upkeep to stay competitive within these 4 terminals though, Singapore is working on a project of all projects to elevate this quite a bit higher. Terminal 5. The new mega hub will be built on 1,100 hectares of reclaimed land, making it one of the largest terminals in the world, scheduled for completion in the 2030s, with an investment of around $10 billion. Eventually, Singapore Airlines will move to Terminal 5, and then each of the alliances will essentially claim one of the original 3 terminals as their own, at which point the airport will be able to handle up to 153 million passengers annually. Okay, let's get through security and get on board. At Terminals 1, 2, and 3 here at Changi, the security is at the gate. As we head down the jet bridge, let's take a look at today's flight stats. I was warmly greeted as I stepped on board, with my carry-on in hand, even though a couple of really overzealous gate staff were trying to force loads of people to gate check their bags. One of them approached me. "Sir, can we check your bag into the hold?" I asked, Is that a question?" "Yes, we need to check bags." I said, "Okay, then no thanks." And with eyes with the life of a sleeping snail, "So are you saying that you do not want to check your bag?" "Correct." Which he rolled his eyes at and huffed away. So these seats, they're okay. They are full-feature seats, so there are some good bits about them, like a fully adjustable headrest and a full in-flight entertainment monitor. Legroom, similar to Singapore's wide-body regional fleet, is passable. I'd guess 30 inches, maybe 31, depending on who's measuring. And like all of the 737s, the seats are narrower than their equivalent seats on any A220 or A320 out there. But for a short flight, they're fine. The only thing that I really don't like about these new Maxes, and yes, I'm sure you have 35 things that you don't like about Maxes as well, let's leave that for another time. For me, it's all about the overhead air vents. They have them, but the general air vent, I don't know what to call it, to the side of it, which is not adjustable, blows directly towards the air vents, which means that it just negates your own air vent, and there's no actual air that reaches you. This is not an SQ problem. I've noticed this on all new 737s, and it generally only applies to the window seat. We pushed back as the safety video began, and I had a look at the big ol' engine out the window. So, how's the video so far? Enjoying it? If you are, go ahead and click that like button. Clicking that button and subscribing really is the best way to support a channel at no cost to you. But some people like to spend, and who am I to judge what makes you happy? So I do have a Patreon and channel memberships for those that would like to check those out. Whatever you choose, thanks very much for watching, and if you have any constructive feedback, questions, or glowing reviews, as always, leave them in the comments. We had a pretty quick taxi today, taking off to the north. The spool up, takeoff, and airport stats are coming up now. During COVID, SQ folded Silk Air, their regional airline, into the mainline outfit, bringing narrow-body planes back to SQ for the first time in decades. And it seems things are going pretty well. Last year they had their largest profit in history at over 2 billion Singapore dollars. What did they do with part of that? Well, they gave it out as bonuses to staff, of course. How much? Oh, well, just the equivalent of 8 months' salary. Yes, 8 months. Imagine if you had a salary of $50,000 per year. Your bonus here would be a cool $33,000. Service on board for these ultra-short services is limited to coffee, tea, or water. As we take a look at that and the in-flight entertainment, which is pretty good, let me explain how SQ has managed to stay so relevant in the Europe to Australia market, even as their focus has grown more and more in other regions over the years. It all comes down to the number of destinations and flights on each end of the equation, so to speak. At the time of writing, SQ currently has around 20 daily flights to Europe, spread across 14 destinations with double daily service to Zurich, Frankfurt, and Paris, and 4 daily to Heathrow. Then they have around 22 daily flights to Australia and New Zealand, covering 9 destinations, with Melbourne seeing up to 5 flights per day, and Sydney, Brisbane, and Perth seeing each up to 4. The options for one-stop destinations are simply pretty attractive. But that's not to say that they are necessarily the most attractive these days. You can certainly fly to many more destinations on one stop with Emirates and the like, but that's for another trip report. And we'll put a pin in the historical context for today right there. For now, I'll let you enjoy the descent and arrival into Kuala Lumpur. Once you land in Kuala Lumpur, if you land in the satellite terminal, you're in for a continuation of your journey. Hopefully this will all be fixed by February of 2025, but they're currently replacing the air train, which feels like it's been closed for around 3.5 eternities at this point. So you're going to walk and keep walking more, quite a ways, to get to a very long line, to wait for a very tired bus. But don't worry, the fun doesn't stop there. You've still got immigration too. Okay, that'll do it for today. I genuinely hope that you did enjoy this quick walk through Singapore's aviation history and will continue to tune into my Hub and Routes series. If you did enjoy this video, please be sure to click the like button and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss out on my twice weekly videos. I'll see you next time for a special treat at the Park Hyatt Bangkok. Oh, and as always, thanks for watching until the end.